Hello, it is Neil Romanek, and welcome to Feed Forum, the next installment in Feed's webinar series. And today we are talking monetization, new money, new models. Where is the fast money in content delivery? Monetization. So, you can have some great content out there, but it may not be making money. And we see examples of that from history. Blade Runner. Everybody loves Blade Runner, right? It was a bomb when it came out. Didn't make money. Or It's a Wonderful Life. There's another one. Christmas classic. Great movie. Everybody loves it. Made no money. And we've seen that, countless times. We can look back at things that are really high quality or things that we loved. But they may not have made money when they were released or when they were put in front of audiences. So we can see those things for like having a great product, having great audience, and making money are kind of two separate things. They're not automatically linked. And we need to think about monetization as a process, as something that you do actively with your content. You can't just build it and expect them to come, although that would be really nice, but that's not how the business works. Luckily, there are tools and people and expertise in place that can help you monetize your content. And we have today with us some experts in the field of broadcast technology who are working on all types of solutions and with customers, helping them to monetize their content in a variety of ways. I have here with me, I'm pleased to say, Blaise Keen, who's Commercial and Marketing Director at Rakuten TV, Jonathan Lowe, VP of Sales and Partnerships at Zixi, and Chris Singleton, Head of Innovation at Hoppr TV. Hi, guys.
Hi, Neil.
Hey, good morning.
So maybe we can just quickly go around and just talk about, just introduce yourselves and talk about what you do at your company, and then we can kind of get into this discussion about monetization. Blaise, do you want to start us?
Yeah, happy to. Thanks for having me here, Neil. It's great to be part of this conversation. So my name is Blaise Keen. I work for Rakuten TV, which is a European streaming company. It's under the umbrella of the Rakuten organization, which is a Japanese e-commerce conglomerate. I have the role of marketing within Rakuten TV. It's both B2C marketing, so driving customers to the streaming platform, but there's also B2B marketing, because not only do we have users and viewers on our platform, but we also work with advertisers and agencies and content owners and TV operators as well, where we provide a lot of B2B services. So it's mostly a marketing role, but there's also commercial elements as well around business planning, forecasting, budgeting, and strategy as well.
Great. Jonathan?
Yeah, my name is Jonathan Lowe, and I'm looking after the partnerships and channel sales at Zixi. So my role is basically to work out where Zixi fits in with our partners, and yeah, just basically driving revenue through that way. Prior to Zixi, I was actually at the trade desk, so this topic is good and close to my heart, because one of the things I'm looking at Zixi is how we bring the broadcast world closer to the ad tech monetization world, because there is a bit of a gap between the two.
Great. Well, I mean, that kind of gets us to, I guess the first question I'm going to put out to you is, we talked in my introduction, I talked a little bit about that kind of relationship with the audience and how audiences react or respond to content. Maybe it's great content, maybe it's not so great, but they watch it anyway. But it's a really interesting relationship, and that's always changing, especially with new tech. Be interesting to hear just kind of what your thoughts are about that changing relationship with the audience, and what does it mean for your customers or for broadcasters or content owners, in terms of kind of managing that relationship. It's like kind of always you're always on a moving train, trying to keep that relationship solid and going. Does anyone want to jump in on that first?
I don't mind too. Rakuten TV, as I said, is a B2C streaming platform, so customers were at the heart of the business, and it really fuels it. We have to think every day about how do we acquire new customers, how do we keep our existing customers, and also keep adapting to the changing new business models that are out there and what's happening in the competitive space. For us, we started in the transactional video on demand space, which is just buy or rent movies. It was really closely aligned to a traditional home entertainment business model, quite closely aligned to the theatrical business model that is important to content owners. But over the last, say, 4 or 5 years, there's really been a push towards the ad-funded models, so AVOD and FAST. We've seen really strong adoption rates amongst users. It is much easier for us to acquire customers through AVOD or FAST than it was ever to acquire them on a transactional model. And in the last, I would say, year to 18 months, we're really seeing it accelerate even more. Um, one of the drivers, I'd say, well, there's many drivers of that. There's the fact that it is free to consume. So, when there are economic downturns or financial pressures, free appeals a lot to users. But I think one of the things which has been really, really positive for driving AVOD and FAST and is benefiting us is the changes that have happened in the subscription space, so in SVOD. For years, it was actually quite a threat to our business because it was such a great volume of content at a really, really low subscription price. I mean, we all jumped onto Netflix in such a big way. But now that all of those platforms have these ad-funded models, it's really getting users used to or familiar again with watching advertising before watching the content. So the fact that now we have an AVOD and FAST platform where you do not have to pay a monthly subscription is a real benefit for platforms like us because in fact, users are already getting ads served to them in SVOD platforms, and they're paying monthly subscription services. And suddenly, all of those AVD and FAST platforms are looking a little bit shiny, a little bit more glossy as well. So, yeah, it's a good change for us.
Um, I apologize. I'm so sorry, Chris. You're the man who needs no introduction, Chris Singleton, because I forgot to introduce you properly. So I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then also if you take a stab at that question too, please.
Yeah, fine. I'm Chris Singleton. I've got a bit of a weird role. I'm innovation, strategy, and corporate development at Hoppr TV. So I've sort of got a role across the whole business. All care and no responsibility is probably the best description. But it's actually quite good because um, you can see a lot more than just being siloed. So it kind of helps with what we do. We're a bit different to the others. We provide an end-to-end platform for network operators, traditionally in the triple play space that started off life as helping them monetize their electronic program guide, which most people spend 30 odd minutes a day in, and then it's moved over the last number of years to sort of just doing full SSAI end to end and managing the whole thing. And we approach it from a slightly different perspective to others, where monetization for us is monetizing your own data and your own messaging that you've got. So lowering your cost to retain a customer, lowering your cost to manage a customer, and then that should help you lower your cost to acquire a customer. Do that really, really well. Know the subscriber, the viewer really, really well. And at that point in time, then look to external monetization because you're not just putting ads up into programmatic. You're you're getting more to like affinity marketing and collaboration style of stuff. And I'm clearly pretty old, so I cut my trade in the early 80s in linear TV and advertising. So bit of a dinosaur like that, but still some good insights.
Amazing. What about that thing of that relationship with the audience? I mean, that's actually an interesting thing to look at from starting from absolute linear TV to now, and it seems like that relationship with the audience is seesawing back and forth in ways
Well,
now
I
in
kind
a
of think
rapid
it is,
way.
but I think it just gets lost in language, and also maybe people sort of realizing that situation like television's great for it's a shared experience. It creates moments. It's a kind of an oxytocin thing, but I don't think it's a particularly good transactional thing. But clearly, personal devices and that are fantastic at transactional stuff. So treating an iPad like a television set to me is kind of like don't bother doing it. But being able to sort of start the journey on the large television set and then handing the journey off onto devices that are transactional where you can get more granular with audience attribution is, to me, how it should be done and where it should be heading.
Mm-mm-mm. That's really interesting, Jonathan.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I think a slightly differing viewpoint on that, just from kind of what I've seen over the years. That the relationship with the audience does also depend the age group of the audience and where they're consuming. So a lot of Gen Zs aren't actually consuming content on the TV; they are consuming content on the personal device. So this is where you almost need to kind of, not necessarily tweak the content, but tweak how you're sharing the content with those audiences. And again, the measurement piece is absolutely key because you've got the traditional TV format. There are some other ways to measure. You can still leverage the panel-based solution, so you have an understanding of like, have you reached your demographic? But what we're seeing, or what I've seen over the years, is this change of actually understanding what did my audience do? Like, did they go to a website? Did they go and order a product? And that can't be done from the TV, so you do need to have that device with it. So the audience, I feel, is that it because I know there's a question later on, how do you gain audiences from social? Is that you could sort of be so tactical, and Blaise, it's probably where you spend a lot of your time, is working out where do I pull my audiences from, because they're not all consuming on the TV, and there is that change of where it's being consumed. So it's very key to kind of understand where everyone is consuming it.
Yeah, I was just.
I probably should have been a little bit more. I was going to say, I probably should have been a bit more. So our platform allows us. So we're predominantly set-top box based platform, but also onto OTT apps and bits and pieces for network operators. So take Singapore, we see 400 million minutes of viewing data a month down to the millisecond, which we normalise to the minute. So we have like literally total TV viewing on over 500,000 set-top boxes, the apps, the multicast, and then also attribution modelling from what they're doing on their mobiles and bits and pieces. So I completely agree with you, Jonathan. I should have just been a bit more... we just had this granular insights that allows you to do exactly what you're talking about. So absolutely at one with what you're suggesting and saying.
That's awesome, and that's a lot of data.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, good fun though.
Were you going to jump in as well, Blaise?
I was just going to comment. Yeah, you're right. It's about, we do spend a lot of time about where do we get our customers from. Ultimately, we do all want them on the TV, though. That's a place where we can make the most amount of money from the customers. That's where the advertising spend is, on the connected TV. So whether we get them on mobile or web, ideally we want them to be watching it. And a lot of the content we have is long form content, which is best watched on the smart TV anyway. So that suits it. The point about attribution, you're right. When you say about the measurement and attribution isn't quite there on TV, that is only for the moment. There are some developments around audience graphs, etc., which are coming really, really soon, which are going to help that attribution on connecting the advertiser through to the business outcome. So the viewer, what they're watching, to the business outcomes, the advertiser. So I think in 2026 is going to be a really interesting time when we make that connections, where the traditional linear TV just couldn't ever do it. CTV and FAST and AVOD on TV will bridge that gap and get there. And I think it's going to be a great time for advertisers.
So I guess maybe that gets us to the general question of fast TV, and that, I mean, what's fascinating is that people look at like fast TV and go, well, that's just TV. That looks exactly the same as the 1980s or 70s or 50s, but it is kind of like this reboot and this rethinking based on being able to use data that wasn't available before. And so maybe somebody want to jump into that and say kind of what is it about fast that makes it not TV from the 1950s, even though it may look like it, and kind of what is the future there in terms of really being able to engage with audiences in a very different way.
I can have a crack at this one to start with.
Yeah.
I think with fast, I think what I've seen is that it's providing for audiences that may not have been provided for before. So with your traditional linear channels, you've got all your tentpole content, but you may only have like the one-off shows that might be relevant to certain audiences. My hobby outside of work is I fish. So every now and then I will watch. If there's a fishing fast channel, that's probably going to be very unique to me and very boring to someone else. But that there is an audience for that. So I think what Fast has done is it's been able to cater for those who have much more special interests, much more niche content. One I always go to, and I've had many conversations with advertisers, is around anime, where a lot of them are like, oh, I don't want to be on anime. And I'm like, there are so many people that watch anime, and the demographic that watches anime are generally, more techie, maybe in that engineering world may actually be high earners. So they are actually an audience you want to find for. So I think Fast has created this really interesting kind of point of where it looks like traditional TV. You don't need to search for content, which I know is another question we'll get onto. And allows you to kind of dive in and dive out in the normal traditional TV way. So that's where I think Fast is really good. And I still think Fast has a lot more growth ahead of it. I know some people say it's stalled, but I think people have seen where Fast has been successful. And I think if you can replicate those models and then kind of chase down that line, that's kind of my perspective on Fast.
I guess maybe to add into that, sorry, Blaise,
Yeah.
just one thing to throw in there is like, how is that? And Blaise, I'm sure you'll have like some good insight in this, but so how is that different from me being able to give somebody a lot of targeted on-demand content that is like, here's everything you could ever want in anime or fishing or whatever, go for it.
You're not making me choose.
Right.
I can,
And why is that important? And why is that important?
because I think a lot of people they spend more time trying to find something to watch versus than just switching something on to watch. So I think it's taking that you're taking away that the challenge of search, which is a challenge across everyone. Everyone's got multiple different apps. So I think that's if you just end of the day you want to sit down and decompress, you don't want to then spend 20 minutes trying to find something you want to watch. So that, like I say, that's probably more of a personal opinion, but I do think that does resonate across the board.
Blaise?
I just wanted to add an anecdote to what you're saying about the anime piece on a political stage. If you don't saw what happened in Nepal just a month ago, Gen Z overthrew the government, and it was all driven by the One Piece. So if any other saying people are watching anime, they're absolutely wrong. It's really, really powerful. But I would say the point around exactly as you said, Jonathan, about why Fast does well and AVOD's doing fine, but why Fast has a place. It's that sort of, I think it's that fear of commitment people have when they're browsing around about what to watch. You sort of end up in this doom scrolling of searching and searching and searching and searching. And there's a lot of good stuff that you like, but it's a bit of a sort of a suffering a user has to make to commit to something they're about to watch. With linear TV, yes, you do make that first little jump, but then you sit back and you just allow you allow a curated experience to flow over you, and you enjoy content and people will suggest it to you. It's why I think for many years people always said, well, traditional TV is going to die, it's got its place, everyone wants on demand. And it's like, in my opinion, yes and no. It was a little bit too restrictive. It was all general entertainment channels which were trying to cater for everyone, and Fast gives you that kind of diversity of choice. If you like fishing, you like fishing. If you like Bollywood movies, you like Bollywood movies. But the actual linear experience of sitting back and having a curated selection of movies served to you, I think is still super powerful, and users appreciate that freedom of that constant suffering of always having to pick something to watch and then stick to it. And if they're unhappy with it, yes, they're responsible for their choice. So I think Fast it's here to stay, and the linear experience is here to stay forever.
Yep. Well, I suppose I'm one of the few people that can actually have got a pretty good data set on that, and can show exactly what people are doing. So in Singapore, you've got 140, with StarHub, you've got 140 traditional pay TV channels. Then the average person's got 8 to 9 apps on them. That we see about 400 apps in total that people have downloaded across those 500,000 or 600,000 set-top boxes. And then you see the usual suspects, and then you'll see exactly what you're talking about. You'll see the specialist content apps, and there'll be 3 or 4 of those. They'll be fast, or they'll be gaming, or something or other like that. And then you see the interaction between people watching the unicast channels, and then at a certain time they'll go across to something that they like, and then they'll come back again to the content and what they're doing. And so we get all the metadata that we can, and we actually go through it and we put all behavioural modelling over it. And so it's really, really interesting to say, watch how people do it. But one thing we have learned, that you need to be able to literally monetize every single thing at one point in time on that set-top box or that television set. Because if you're just monetizing the top 10, say, unicast channels, that may be the top 10 on 500,000 boxes that light lit up during prime time, but that may only be 100,000 of those boxes. And there's still 400,000 people doing other stuff. So you need to be able to kind of deduplicate it and then run turf analysis over it, and then actually be able to work out who, what, when and where to deliver a contextually relevant. So fast, absolutely. And I think a lot of pay TV operators would do well to actually use the insights that are getting from Conviva or a platform like us, like ours, and then actually integrate it into the EPG, the same as they do pop-up channels during the Olympics or anything else. It just makes a lot of sense to, well, you've seen that content, bring it in and start building a relationship with the subscriber.
So then, how is that? How can advertisers use that data that you've got, for example, or use the fast experience to really start thinking differently about how they do stuff?
Well, there's a couple of ways you can do it. So if you're a broadcaster and you've got the TAM data, you can literally show where the holes in the TAM data are. I'll give you a really good example of that. In Singapore, the TAM panel's about 1,200 households. There's two pay TV operators, StarHub and Singtel. They both got 250 of those 1,200 boxes each on the panel. That StarHub and Singtel account for about 60 to 70% of the viewing is done through HDMI 1 on a set-top box. It's a very set-top box market. So straight away, the panel data is skewed because you've only got 500 of boxes of a 1,200 panel, and the rest is on free-to-air channels. But if you look at 5 free-to-air channels from MediaCorp, and you just take StarHub, there's 140 channels. What happens is everything zeroes up to become a statistically relevant thing on TAM data. And if you take our data set, you can see what you planned by the SingTam, and then you can actually see where the holes were that you didn't get. And then you can actually we'll use that data to then go and find those people that you should have messaged, be it in fast or be it in something, video on demand or whatever. And the only difference between, say, getting $50 or $60 a CPM, if you work it out from a broadcast perspective, to say 5 or 10 on a fast app, same viewer, same audience, it's just the data set that's attached to it.
If anyone else wants to jump in on that.
I don't mind. So I noticed this sort of comparison between panel measurement and the data that's available in Fast. At least from our perspective, typically the panels in most markets, at least some in Europe, have pretty much solely focused on the traditional broadcasters, and they've not really done any favors to Fast, CTV, AVOD platforms, and really told a single story that the viewers are all on the broadcasters. It is changing in some of the markets. So Bob in the UK is doing a lot more. There's some others in the rest of the European markets, but it's a slow story. For us, the advertisers want as much transparency as they can get, and as much ability to target the users that they can get their hands on, because ultimately they just want to sell their products to potential buyers. And therefore, our job is to give as much transparency, as much detail and signals in every ad request, every users on the platform that we possibly can to advertisers, and they really appreciate it. And the more we give, the more the advertisers spend, and the better the CPMs are as well. I think it's also always important. It's important not to only look at the advertiser space and just to serve the advertisers. Of course, that's one part of what we do. We also have to keep in mind on the viewers and the audience as well, because they it's important not to forget that they are someone experiencing content. So you've got to balance one hand trying to give as much information you can to the advertisers through signals, transparency, tracking user first-party data, etc., gathering it all up and giving it to advertisers. At the same time, as really respecting users' decisions and choices. So content management is really important to, give the users the choice about whether they want to be targeted or not be targeted, having good platforms in place to gather information, not overloading the users with too much advertising, not too frequent of the same adverts as well, because it's not just about the immediate sort of gain; it's about the long-term sort of viability of the industry. So keeping the users happy and as part of this is super important.
To
So
add
what
on,
is? Go ahead, Jonathan.
yeah. So to add on to that as well, I think having passing as much data through the RTB spec is so important, but also fully aware in Europe the challenges of GDPR, and a lot of broadcasters won't necessarily pass the relevant information through, which is understandable, because a fine for breaking GDPR is not a good one. But that's where I see, and Blaise, Chris, I'd love to get your opinion on this as well, is that the importance of contextual and content signals. And I think those are going to become so much more prevalent to continue the programmatic way. So media can still be decisioned. We can get information on what type of content is focused for what type of user through panels and other ways. But just leveraging, but still keeping that user experience, which is so key, and working out, can we solve for in the future on things like frequency, because that's one of the great things about programmatic is you're not, yes, you have a higher CPM, but because you can target a house 3 or 4 times within a month versus linear, where the amount of arguments I had is, I'm paying a $4 CPM. It's like, yeah, you target a house 80 times, I have the data. So I think having that data pass through is so important. But I do see a lean towards contextual, a lean towards that content base. So whether it's genre, show name, channel name, I think show name can be challenging. But that's where I see programmatic going. Like in the US, where I am at the moment, I think it's 20 states trying to work out whether IP should fall under PII, which means if it goes down GDPR route, then IP potentially becomes a challenging ID to leverage, similar way as it is in Europe with GDPR. So data is so important for the programmatic ecosystem and for driving those CPMs. I just feel it's going to lean towards content, which I think is better in the long run. It's less challenging.
One of the things
I
I'll
suppose.
sort of throw in there is just one thing about that, kind of trying to get content into new markets, or trying to get things in front of new audiences and monetizing that. How does I've been I've done well in Asia, and I want to taking the anime question, and I really want to start moving into Latin America or something. And how can I, as a content owner, be smart about making these jumps and getting doing it sort of sensibly, and being able to sort of monetize going into the market.
If I could take the one, I think that's where FAST has been such a benefit to content owners, especially content owners of niche content or specific genres. On the one hand, it's born of a problem in the market, which is fragmentation. So the market is really fragmented around where viewers are watching content, because in days gone by, you would watch either on your free TV or you'd watch on your paid TV. That was it. And now there is just a range of different places where fast channels can pop up. The great thing for content owners is there's a range of different places they can go to get their fast channel on, and at least sort of start exploring those platforms, of which Rakuten TV is one of them, but not only. We realized this was happening several years ago, and realized we couldn't just be Rakuten TV and only put content on our own. So we ourselves went forth and put all of our channels onto other platforms as well. So it's both on Rakuten TV, but we are across Samsung TV Plus and LG channels, etc. So I think for content owners who want to go to new markets or new places, there's a wider range of options available to them. I think it's worth always keeping in mind the value of the content and the curation of the content as well. It may feel easy or a desire to just throw content at the wall and see what sticks, but it's not actually the best way. It is about finding a particular audience in a market, and trying to curate your content into a particular package or a particular channel, be it a multi-IP channel or single IP channel, and really trying to find a home for it. The good thing is the distribution opportunities are there. I'll just give some examples where we've seen success with content partners with us. Bollywood in Germany, incredibly successful for us. 5 years ago, we would not have predicted, yes, Bollywood in Germany is going to be a pathway to success. Now we work with a provider in Germany and it's one of our best performing channels. Or Westerns in Spain. Again, when you're looking at the data and you're trying to predict, you need news channels and entertainment, etc. There are passionate audiences of people in every market, and it's just about getting your content curated and reaching those audiences. So, but the benefit to content owners is there's just a much wider opportunity and much wider range of different platforms they can go to get their content there. They still just need to think about the curation and find an audience for it.
And I need to get a hold of Chris's data.
Chris's data.
Yeah, well, actually, I was going to say some interesting stuff about, IP addresses for a start. They're notoriously inaccurate. That's one of the big hidden secrets. Like we see them change 12% over the course of a week and 40% over the month. So IP targeting, knock yourself out. It's a lot of wasted stuff on there. And in Germany, they change every 15 minutes, I think, by law. IP addresses, they just rotate through. But there is products around that can normalise the IP address, and they're actually quite good because you effectively turn, like digital envoys, like ID, you effectively turn it into an NFT, and you can attach attributes and bits and pieces to it. I'll go back to the audience targeting, actually, because we go about it slightly differently. We have incredible insights, obviously, from all the insights. Like we've got 400 audience segments. You can find and put attributions to anybody you want. You come in there, you plan your audience, you build your audience, and you do it. And then there's just an audience ID that's attached to it. So we're not flicking things up into a programmatic ad call. The advantage of that is that you get guaranteed reach and guaranteed frequency. You're not sitting on a DSP hoping you're going to win a bid or whatever. So, like I said, I'm old and I learnt the rule of 7. So you need to show somebody a message 7 times on a television set to get a behaviour. So hence 8. And to me, a frequency of 8 means 8. It doesn't mean like 10 here and 7 there and 5 there and divide it by the total amount that happened. So completely agree with what you're both saying about that. So we've actually gone about building a platform that does just that. So you come in, you build your audiences, there's behavioural modelling in there. So we use sports value modelling in there. You made a really interesting point about the metadata and the content. In Singapore, you've got, and we're obviously in other markets as well, but Singapore is the most interesting because you've got an Indian population, a Chinese population, an Arabic, Malay Peninsula population, and the expats. So the stuff about Bollywood content and that, we completely see the content usage and things like that. But also you kind of see that how, because there's no ad-supported content in Singapore, so we've had to kind of learn about frequency capping and skippability. Like people just assume skippability should be on high content packages and not on small. But what I can tell you that if you have a relevant ad that is contextually relevant, skippability is not a thing. So, and we all know this, but I just think we all forget it because we just get into a transactional mode because it's easier and quicker than actually doing some of the hard yard stuff.
Interesting. So the content piracy. I heard a stunning figure the other day that 1/3. No, not 1/3. That content piracy is the 3rd biggest source of revenue for organized crime in the world, after human trafficking. No, the first one, drugs, and then human trafficking, and then content piracy. And the amount of revenue being lost to content piracy is really stunning. Not to get too much into that separate topic, but that's something that if I'm monetizing my content, I I need to be thinking about that or factoring that into what I'm doing, or is that just for the big sports companies? I shouldn't be worrying about that. It's how does that affect my ability to monetize things, and also what should I be asking vendors if I'm if I'm a content owner about how to protect myself?
It's the
If I
least
jump into that
exciting. It's the least
thorny
exciting
question.
question on the lineup because piracy is piracy. It's not entirely under anyone's control, and it's an issue that's been around for
Mm,
decades. We're not going to solve it. We aren't going to solve it here. Um, I guess the standard response to any content owner is work with platforms and companies who have suitable DRM in place. At least they can protect the content that's been given to that platform. Keep on top of YouTube to make sure content isn't being littered there and undermining your viewer. If you're a really big company and you have all the CTOs and tech in place to evaluate all your vendors, that's great. If you're not, it can be quite challenging to know who actually can protect your content. I would say if you're a small content owner, you can be a bit pragmatic. You can look to see which of the major content owners, major studios, major broadcasters are working with, and take some sort of guess trust that platform is reliable, because we know from our experience that major content owners are really robust in protecting their content and their content rights, and we work with a lot of big
mm,
content owners, and they are really strict on the DRMs we need to have in place and how we respect their content. And we do know that a lot of small content owners just use that as a proxy for evaluating us. Oh, we know you work with Disney and Warner Brothers and NBC Universal, therefore you're trustworthy. So if you're small, you can
mm,
kind of trust the platform and the partner you're working with, saying, show me evidence that you work with a big content owner. But to your question, are we going to solve piracy? The government enforcement needs to be in place. Industry bodies are in place.
mm.
The most we can do is just protect the relationships we have with the vendors that we're working with, I think.
But it does mean though that
I'm,
there's a potential amount of money I could be earning that I'm not earning, and I just have to
Very
accept
so.
it.
but look, because we're a kind of we're a broadcast product, right? So we deal with the IPT broadcasters, and I am staggered and so Olivia Abasard has joined us from ex Media. And I thought I knew what was going on. I am staggered at just the sheer innovation that's going on, where CDNs are being hacked, and content's being pulled out, and then watermarks are being, which multiple watermarks are being then fed through AI. So even if you're putting watermarks in different spots, they're removing it and making and reconstructing the content, and then it's being white labeled platform to then be reticulated by people in market. And I think that's how you get to what you were talking about, Neil, about the scale of
Mm,
and and organised crime, because that's not a bunch of people in a back room doing it. That's
mm, mm.
serious engineering know-how, which should be good to use for good, not evil.
Yeah. But if I'm a viewer,
It's
I'm like
massive.
at home. I'm like I just got this set-top box from a guy down the street, and I can get all the channels for nothing practically, and I don't know where it came from. And
But
as a user, I may not know where that's even coming
Well,
from.
part of the solution there is legitimate companies creating a really good user experience and a really easy to access user experience. And I think SVOD did such a great job with that. They sort of made it really cheap, great content, great quality. So users, I would hope that a lot of people do have that moral dilemma. Do I pirate or do I not? If it's easy enough to do it legitimately, I'll do it legitimately. So
Yeah, and I suppose then how do you sort of turn it into a value add, with commerce-based stuff and platforms going in there, like with merchandise and things like that. There alternative models you can do, particularly with fast, where you're talking to that niche thing by building stuff in, and the only way you get those value-added components, merchandise or special content or whatever, is through a legitimate platform, not through um, a piracy, which I think goes to your point, Blaise, about
Mm-mm.
changing the construct of it.
Jonathan, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. I think the important one is that I think where Piracy, and please correct me if you feel my thinking is wrong, is that piracy really kind of spiked probably in the 2010s, like when IP was starting to be kind of more like you could actually deliver video over IP. It was possible. And the challenge being that cable, certainly here in the US, I've been in the US 10 years now, cable was so expensive, like so expensive. It was $300 a month, and you were getting not a great experience. So people were just hunting. I want to watch content and I don't want to pay $200 a month. So the guy down the road selling a set-top box for $100 one off, I'm going to take that. And I think that's where where technology, certainly with Zixi, we don't generally do the sort of end-to-end user, but we are fully encrypted IP to as a contribution piece as well. So we know what we're sending through is safe and secure, but it comes down to that user experience. You want to go into an app, find your content, and you can start quickly. The less hurdles you put in front of a user, the less chance they're going to go make the effort to go and speak to the guy that's selling set-top boxes.
Yeah, completely agree.
But it is that, so it gets us back again to that relationship with the audience and kind of what's that relationship like, and how do you, I guess, how to protect that and nurture that. And I guess that brings us into social media as well, and like how do I how do I get my potential viewers off of social media, or how do I insert myself into their social media experience so that I can get them, I can get part of that relationship back, rather than that relationship ultimately being controlled by a social platform. How does social media and that sticky relationship we all have with it? How should I be thinking about that in terms of monetizing my content? Anybody want to take on?
Well, I think it's
Jeff Bezos
respecting the relationship of each screen. Like, the television is a shared viewing experience generally, like we see, and a personal device is a personal device. So the shared viewing experience, like television is an emotional thing. The production values are higher, the sound quality is higher. Like, I don't see people crying when they see something on a small device, but you please see plenty of people tear up on a large screen. But so, taking that and back to that kind of attribution piece that Jonathan and Blaise are talking about, like taking it from there, and then when you get them onto that personal device, then the story change, or the narrative of the story changes into more information, more transactional, more pushing them towards the commerce platform.
Mm-hmm.
And audience extension too. You've got sporting content. Find those audience insights you've got on large television, and then chopping that content up and making it fit for purpose on socials to drive engagement higher, which is what advertisers on sporting content want. They just don't want their ad on there; they want engagement, and that's what Liberty's done so well.
And what about with advertising? How should I be thinking about, or what can I offer as a broadcaster, or what can be offered to advertisers to, because if I'm going to be advertising across social media platforms, but what is it that, say, fast channels or a broadcaster can offer me that I can't get through social media advertising?
I think it's looking at the different kind of funnels, and I think like fast is changing. Like TV is 100 an awareness. Well, I'd say 90% is an awareness, model. It's you're showing, here's my brand, and then you want to drive them down the funnel to other areas. Where I think the change is happening with fast and the what broadcasters can offer to advertisers is shoppable ad units. So where you can actually buy, whether it's through a QR code. I'm not a fan of QR codes; they're never big enough and they're never on screen long enough. But there are other technologies that and solutions coming out. There's one company called Say It Now that uses the I don't think my Alexa's turned on, so Alexa's. where you'll get a pop-up on an ad to say, ask your Alexa for your Domino's voucher, and then you'll have a conversation with your smart speaker, and then you'll be texted a code or whatever. That works with a TV because most people have these smart assistants in there. I don't need to do anything. I don't need to grab a device out. I don't need to come off my social media. I can just yell at my Alexa. And that's where I think having those sort of capabilities, that's where it changes the dynamic within like those fast channels and those ad units. They become more interactive, but they become properly interactive. And then the data that the advertiser and the broadcaster gets back, you get a true understanding of how that content is performing, versus it being, cool, I got a GRP, which I still think is one of the most pointless. I need to be careful. I do not
Completely agree.
I don't think a GRP
Completely agree.
in today's world should be leveraged as a way to say my campaign has been successful. Like, that's a whole other topic. Very well, bite my tongue.
Well, bring back the tarp. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I completely agree with that. One thing about the television set, it is the gateway to the household values. It is the only single device that consolidates what everybody in the house is doing. It's the kitchen table. Like, if you want to find out what's happening in a thing, you sit down on the Sunday conversation and any shared dining experience. And the closest you're going to get to that is the television set in the room. And then if you're analysing the content that they're watching, and then really delving into the metadata, looking for themes and things like that, that's giving you the kind of like some really interesting values to then, as an advertiser, to be able to use and build your campaigns on, and then take that and then use the insights you're getting from the personal device to then tailor it even further. The two of them kind of should be working hand in hand.
That's really fascinating, that idea that like, this is the TV, this is what we know everybody in the house can agree on, sort of.
Oh, I can give you an example in Singapore, right? So just from sheer inference. So an ad campaign for a large airline, and they wanted to run it across the thing. But what we're able to do is, by looking at it, effectively infer double income, no kids, children with households with children, and then because Singapore households are generational, then grandparents looking after children, and so therefore there's the ad of the double income clinking the champagne glass in business class. There's the grandparents taking their kids through Disney, and then there's the family thing. So same ad, same branding, same things, but you're just being able to contextually make it relevant for each of those three people, and then take that and then effectively activate that on the open web, because you know what they are, and then push them to price and product and to the book this and things like that. So that's where the household value set's really good, and then you do the attribution stuff on other devices.
So that's we're gonna have to wrap up here, unfortunately, shortly. But I think that brings up this question: like, we have so much data available. How do I really use that in the best possible way? And I guess the answer of the day is, well, I just pour it into an AI, and the AI gives me some really great answers back. But how do I? What are maybe some best practices or top tips, if you want to go there, for like how I can really use that data in the best way? Like, what do I need to have in place to start thinking about data in more sophisticated ways?
Yeah, I'll give mine.
Because I have have a mountain of data here, and maybe I have no idea what to even do with it, except this very top layer.
I'll give my passing shot on this one. I think, especially when it comes down to TV, you can get hold of data across linear buys and programmatic buys, and you should be using both to plan your campaigns across the board. Like, amount of times I've sat in conversations where and this is also partly the fault of some of the agencies, where it's the linear teams are separate from the digital teams. The digital team looks after the CTV piece. But being able to leverage what is happening on what an advertiser is doing on linear, and how that informs what their plan should be on CTV, I think is absolutely critical, because that is where the advertiser will be, one, driving their dollars in the best possible way, but it's also, will be driving the right outcomes, hopefully CPMs for the broadcasters as well. But that data exists, it's there, and the two should always be together. They should not be planned in silos.
Yeah, I agree to that.
Totally. And my top tip would be stop thinking as data and start thinking as content and how you curate content, because it sounds pretty, like a throwaway line, but if you think about curation, you tend to sort of think it somewhat differently. It's just a bunch of data signals. At the end of the day, it's just content.
If I could just develop on that one, and Chris, you're absolutely right, it's about content, but I think the story is going to be, it's about audiences in a short amount of time. It's around where do you find the quality audiences that you want to reach. And I think the data is going to get very exciting in the next year around this piece. And I'm sure, Chris, you guys are going to be front and center on that.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Well, I think that's going to be it for. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chris. One last thing. Go ahead, and then.
I was going to say, happy to. We've got a really good anonymized data set that people can kind of rummage around and have a look on the platform. It's take it for a spin. Cool.
Amazing. Yes, that's all the time we have. But that was amazing. Thank you so much. There's a lot more we could explore. But I think that brings up sort of the complexity, and also there's kind of great opportunities that are just sort of sitting out there that if you have the right approach, you can probably be squeezing much more money and much more engagement and a better relationship out of what is maybe already staring you in the face. So thank you, Jonathan, Chris, Blaise. Great to talk to you, and we'll see you guys at home next time on Feed Forum.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.